All right, everyone. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me on Adobe Live for today's audio masterclass, which is going to be based around the topic of understanding and visually understanding noise. And really, I'm going to be breaking down for you how you can begin to use your eyes to visually identify different types of noises, and then how you remove them, repair them, fix them. Not all things can be easily repaired or fixed. And when we're talking about noise, there are many different types. The primary one that everybody encounters that you're usually trying, that's usually the annoyance in, recording a video, whether you're outside or just in a less than ideal environment, is something like broadband noise. And this can be anything from a computer fan, which I typically have going on my streaming system here, or an air conditioner or any kind of thing like that. Wind could sort of be considered a broadband type of noise, but there's different elements to that. And then there's specific types of noises that are not broadband, that occupy a very small frequency range, which are actually easier to target with a specific tool that we have in Adobe Audition called the Sound Remover. So as always, of course, we have our live interactive chat for this stream on Adobe Live. So thank you so much for joining me. What's up, Paul? What's up, Cody? What's up, Steve? What's up, Desiree? What's up, Stephanie? We've got people coming to us live on Twitter, Periscope as well. So this is really a visual tutorial to allow you to understand how to identify different types of noise and how to fix them. And part of the reason that I wanted to do this today, there's a lot of hype over the last couple of days around some of these RTX cards, and I guess the new breed of them has an automatic noise reduction filter built into them. And you've seen all these, some of you may have seen these videos with people, turning on vacuum cleaners behind them and then just showcasing how it zaps it out and you only hear their talking. This is really nothing new. And actually, this is something that we have both in Premiere and Audition as well. If you're obviously recording something and there's a vacuum cleaner behind you, you should probably not do that to begin with, but there are ways to fix some of those issues, and we're gonna talk about that. And again, break them down visually so that you can really understand at a fundamental level what the type of noise is, and then what tool or specific effect you can use to fix it. So what's up, Hira from Pakistan, Gustavo, Jurgen, Andreas, Nizreen from Tunisia. Always so nice to see you. Axe Grinder 69, thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to switch over my screen. Also, I've changed my lighting up a little bit. I had to get some replacement bulbs, and they're taking a little bit longer than usual because of the situation we're all in. So sorry for this kind of makeshift different lighting. I think it looks okay. It's not quite as moody as I would have liked. Also, before we get started, I wanted to point out, hold on, let me switch over my screen here, that today is a slightly more special day for me because it is also release day. Yes, so if you're on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon, or anywhere that music is streamed, you can listen to my latest single, a remix called Fear the Q-Tip. This is one of my favorite children's songs that I've composed. The remix is out now, right now. Check it out. It's also on TikTok. So if you're looking for a funny TikTok to make with your kids, they're driving you a little bonkers being at home and homeschooling, it's funny. I promise you, it doesn't suck. Okay, if you dig rock. If you don't, well, then I guess I'm out of luck. All right, so let's go ahead and switch over to Audition. And actually, we're going to use primarily almost a single file to demonstrate all the things that I want to talk about. Oh, thank you so much, Cody. Jan Eric, I guess you can say that audio with a vacuum cleaner noise sucks. Yes. All right. Thank you. Desiree's laughing at that. Almog, hello. Okay. So this is something that I just shot outside a couple days ago, and it just happens to be exactly the kind of thing that these RTX commercials were kind of highlighting, but really, very realistically, something that you might encounter, particularly if you're filming outside, recording, or doing anything, again, in a less than proper or treated environment. So take a quick listen to this and look at what we're looking at here. So this is called the spectral frequency display. By the way, we're typically used to looking at waveforms like this, right? And this is what we're used to seeing. We're going to use this other view in Audition today and really focus on this. Again, it's called the spectral frequency display. And this, unlike the waveform view, is allowing you to see frequency over time. So here you can see along the vertical axis, we have our frequencies listed. And this being a 44.1 CD standard file, we're going from 0 hertz all the way up to what is effectively 22 1000 hertz. That's also known as the Nyquist limit. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. If this were 48K, the highest frequency that we would see here would be 24 kilohertz. The Nyquist limit is always half of the sample rate. And color, all the color that you see here, represents amplitude. The brighter the color, and you can consider it almost like energy. So all of this stuff down here that's in this very vibrant yellowish orange, this is the loudest frequency. And as you might guess, this is me talking. And then as you go higher and higher in frequency, things begin to, in a gradient kind of way, get darker and darker. These are, less present frequencies up here, okay? And then all of these lines that you're seeing, these linear things going through, these are all specific hums at different frequencies, most likely harmonics of this pool filter that's running behind me. So we're going to go more into detail in this in just a second. Let's take a quick listen, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to mute myself temporarily because, as I mentioned, I do have some fan noise on this, and I don't typically like to use a noise reducer, although I can. The problem is if I turn it on, it's also going to remove the noise from my example file. So I'm just going to mute my mic and let you hear this, and then I'll turn it back on. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises, not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me. All right, so you can very clearly hear all of that, right? And this is what we call a broadband consistent noise, right? So that pool filter, you can see, first and foremost, again, as mentioned, all these horizontal lines that you're seeing here. And by the way, we're going to focus a lot on the tools in Audition. And when I talk about this kind of stuff, I like to liken this to Photoshop, because this is visual learning. We're actually going to use our eyes, and you'll even see that Audition has things like spot healing, which we're going to get to in a little bit. It also has the paintbrush, which we're also going to use, different ways to treat sound. So all of these horizontal lines that you see here, these represent specific hums or buzzes coming off of that pool filter. But all of this other stuff, remember, color is amplitude, all of this here and even here, and you can see that there's a pretty definite cutoff where the sound just starts to lose amplitude right around 8 kilohertz. That's all of the all of that other stuff, all right? So this is called broadband noise because it occupies multiple frequencies simultaneously. And it's also very consistent, which means that for you, or for what these RTX cards are doing, it's actually fairly easy to attenuate or eliminate, okay? Now, it's not always without some potential artifacting, all right? You might encounter some kind of metallic-y sounds as you hear the person's voice, or sometimes it can get even a little muffled, right? It just depends on how much you use. One of the keys to working with noise reduction, and this is no different than working with noise reduction on images, right, with photography, the less you have to use, the better your result will be, really, if you're trying to sort of preserve the original details. The more aggressive you get with it, yes, you might preserve something and restore something that was really unlistenable, but there's always going to be potentially a slight trade-off in doing that, okay? All right. Cool. Okay, so let's go on and start kind of breaking this down here. Now, real quickly, I just want to show you, just in terms of if we just wanted to knock this out, just get rid of it entirely real quickly. All of that. Talked about broadband noise reduction. Okay, so in Audition, we have something here called adaptive noise. And this is, by the way, I'm showing this first because this is a similar algorithm to what those RTX cards are doing, right? Adaptive noise reduction, as the name implies, it's listening to the characteristics of your file, specifically the noise, and it's adapting to that noise and understanding what the program material is versus what that noise is, and then it drops it down. So we have this filter called adaptive noise reduction. I think I'm going to go to heavy noise reduction on here. Now, I don't know exactly how this is going to sound. This is just a preset. But if we take a listen here, actually, let's start with light first and see how it does. You're going to hear the noise at the beginning, and then you're going to kind of hear this as it detects it and then starts to suck it out, and listen to what that does. And I'll mute myself again here so you can kind of hear it very cleanly. Here we go. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises, not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me. Hi, this is Jason Levine. Okay. And depending upon how aggressive you want to get with this, again, we can take all of that out with really one effect, one click. I made a couple of changes to the noise floor to adjust the decibel level of the noise floor there. But that's basically a broadband adaptive noise reduction. And again, maybe you're, shooting something that's in an auto garage or something like that. I did a shoot where we were actually in a garage and there were like just these machine sounds the whole time. Something like this can be very effective. Now, again, there's a little bit of artifacting in there. I didn't tweak it very much. So there's always a little bit of a trade-off, and you can use things like what we call here that spectral decay rate to allow you to more gently kind of attenuate some of that noise versus just suck it all out. Now, Audition and Premiere Pro have no less than 3 or 4 different ways to simply adapt and remove noise, all right? So something like this, let's just take what I have here, and if I just apply this, I just want to show you visually what's happened. Again, color is amplitude. So what you'll see is that at the very beginning where it's doing its detection, you could visually understand that it took a second here to kind of get it. It almost looks fake. It looks like a paint mistake, right? And then it just sucks it out. Now, spectral decay, which this effect has and some of our others do, this is the opposite of what is previously known as a subtractive noise reduction type algorithm, where it's like, program material with noise minus noise equals just program material. It just eliminates it entirely. Spectral decay noise reduction algorithms look at the noise, and then when someone is talking, like you see here, it's basically going to drop that noise down to a point where you don't really perceive it as much anymore. It's still there, it still lingers, but it's not as much of an annoyance, it's not as much of a bother, okay? And then when they're not talking, maybe it keeps it down, maybe it brings it up ever so slightly. But you can see here that it actually left a pretty decent amount of that noise in there, and this might not be what you want. Now, I talk about this all the time. When you're trying to remove ambient or, outside sounds, I mean, you don't necessarily want it to sound like it was recorded live in a studio. So, I'm the first person to say maybe leave a little bit of that noise in there. But for something like this where it's just persistent and bzzz, that's not what we want, okay? And that's not going to be very good. So if you look at, that's the after. Here it is before. Again, just visually you can see, oh, look at all that. Look at that sea of gradient color. Redo it, and you can kind of see how much of it sucked out. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. All right, and let's listen to it before. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. Okay, so again, it did a decent job. There's still a bit of it left in there, and it's a little bit artifacted. Okay, but you can visually see what that effect did. Now, there's a new effect, a denoiser, in Premiere. Now, this particular one is really good for what I would consider subtle broadband noise. This noise here is almost a little too aggressive for this filter. Now, we're going to get more into this in a bit, but what's cool about this one is it's very simple to use. And basically what you do is all you have to do manually is tell it where does most of that noise live in terms of frequency. Now, again, I already told you that this is broadband, and you can see that the noise goes all the way down to the bottom, right? Just above subsonics, and then it goes to around 8 or 9 kilohertz. So pretty well into the highs or the high mids. So we have these things called processing focus curves. The first one here, which is the default, is to focus removing noise on all frequencies. And because this occupies kind of low, medium, and high, that's what I would use for this. And the curves here represent different options. So if you know that you only have like low-end, buzzy, hummy noise, you might choose this curve, which is going to focus removing noise on lower frequencies. And what that's going to do is it's going to eliminate any potential artifacts that you might encounter in the mids and the highs, because it's not going to touch that range. So there's intelligence behind it. Here, this is the frowny face. Well, the frowny face is showing you that we're focusing on mid-range noise, which is right in that vocal range. And then sort of the opposite of that, which is the smile curve, is to focus on noise that's like low and high. And then this last one here is just high frequency. So if you had just like tape hiss or something like that, if you're coming off of an analog recording, you might want to use just this one to carefully minimize some of that if it really bothers you, all right? But for this one, I would use broadband. But I told you that this doesn't really work so well on very aggressive noise. So let's take a listen here. I'm going to mute myself again. I'm probably going to have to put this up to 100%, and then I'm going to process it, and then visually I want you to see what happens, okay? We got a lot more to discuss here, but I want you to kind of just begin to understand visually what's happening here. Here we go. Let me mute myself again. What's up, Jose? So Tim's asking, can you get rid of those first few seconds where the noise wasn't reduced if you don't have that extra room before the speech begins? So with that adaptive noise, and this is why we added a new noise filter, unfortunately, it has to do that, and you will always have that moment where it adapts and detects and then goes into full noise reduction, which is largely why I never really used that, especially on short clips, because of that exact problem. Now, in something like this, where we had a few seconds before I began talking, it wouldn't be a problem. You could cut it out, you could mute it, you could use a keyframe to adjust the volume there. But that's a byproduct of using that effect. Okay, let's check out this one. Here we go. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises, not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me. Okay, now when we look at this one, the first thing I think is, wow, look, it did such a good job in the kind of, mids, low mids, and upper range, but we still have an enormous amount of this low and low mid stuff that just snuck through there, all right? And it's kind of artifacted. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. All right. But again, depending upon where this is going to go, and that was at 100%, what's going to be underneath it, maybe there's some music, this wouldn't necessarily be terribly annoying. The only problem is that this particular range here, which is like 300 to 800 hertz, yeah, it's pretty audible. And you can see, again, color is amplitude. It's red, orange, approaching yellow. We're at what, minus 39? Yeah, it's kind of loud. So that's not an ideal solution. That's the before, so it looks sort of impressive. But when you realize it's not really attacking those lower frequencies, this wouldn't be the most ideal solution for this either, okay? So now we're going to get into selecting noise, all right, understanding what a consistent noise profile is, and then using our third noise reduction option to do that. And then we're also going to talk about painting out individual sounds, all right? Let me just go back to the chats here and see if we've got any questions, all right? Jackie, what's up? All right. There are filter apps that apply things like this to initial recording and things like built-in mics on laptops. Is it better to get the whole recording or filter it first? Ask Steve. Steve from New Zealand. I'm the first to say if the reduction is really good and transparent in that you don't hear any noticeable artifacts, hey, you've heard me say it on these streams before. I don't mind committing to a thing. So, like a destructive change. However, if this were something that I was going to be producing, spending some time on mixing, always record it raw, because the thing is, there might be a moment where, for whatever reason, the algorithm didn't reduce noise properly, or it did something weird, and then you're stuck with something that's you can't undo. So I'm always of the mind, don't apply any kind of effects on input, save for maybe compression if that's in your signal chain. But, whereas years ago we used to joke about fixing it in the mix, now it's just sort of part of the process. Obviously you want it as clean as possible, but if you have no choice and you've got noise, I would leave it and fix it afterwards, just so that you have more flexibility. All right. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. So we're going to zoom in here. By the way, you can see that I'm using the ruler here and right-clicking to zoom horizontally on a time section. So in this case, I can really focus in on time. Now, again, as you begin to look at things, you're going to start to be able to visually identify specific sounds and where other sounds are kind of getting in the way. You'll notice that we've got these kind of blips going on here, right? They're a little faint, a little bit harder to see. By the way, you can also increase visual definition. If we go into Spectral Displays up here in the Preferences menu. Now, I usually keep this. Oh, why didn't it go to Spectral Displays? I usually keep this with a spectral resolution of 2048. I think the default is like 512. The higher the spectral resolution, the more detail of the individual frequencies you're going to see. So like if we were to go to 512, you see all these very defined lines down here? Watch what happens when we go to 512. It just looks kind of like a blob of frequency. That's fine. It's going to display a little bit faster on screen, but it's not very good for careful understanding and editing. If we go to something like 4096, you can see now we get even more definition. And this is also a really cool way to understand how the harmonics of a voice and of sounds kind of evolve, and how really how many frequencies occupy just getting a sound out, right? Unless we're talking about pure tone sine waves, there's a lot of components in a voice and an instrumentation. And it's really cool to be able to see those. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to my 2048 because my personal feeling is that's kind of the best average view that gives you enough detail. This even adds almost a little bit more of a noise grain effect at 2048. So somehow it's not quite as defined, but yet it visually looks a little more defined. Can't really explain that. You can see these things here. These are birds, okay? If I play this. It's very faint. So we're hearing just the frequencies that I've selected there, okay? All right, here's more birds. All right. Again, I'm going to come back to this in just a second. Okay. But what we're trying to do here is identify where most of that is, right? And as you can see, it extends from all the way at the bottom to really about right here, right about here. Now, there is some stuff up here, okay? And one could argue, maybe we want to denoise that. Now, again, that's above 9 kilohertz. When I'm listening to it, even if we amplify this, let's play this, and I'm going to amplify this by 15 decibels. It's not a problem sound. In other words, that's not causing a problem. This is causing a problem. So using the marquee selector, I'm trying to visually identify a section where it's just the sound of that. No birds. And there's one right there. And by the way, when I make this selection, I can move it around. Okay, now if I were to go here, I wouldn't want that, right? Because you can hear that there's a bird in there. Don't do that. It's going to try and remove that bird sound all over the place, and you're going to get some weird artifacting. So you want to find something that's just consistent. Like that. Okay. Once I have my consistent profile, I'm going to right-click here and choose to capture a noise print, all right? And again, this is just a slightly more effective way to visually identify where that noise lives so that you're only removing components of that noise, or at least attenuating those. Let's go ahead and capture a print. Go up to the noise reduction menu, and now we're going to go into the noise reduction process. All right, now again, this is yet another noise reduction filter. We also have the hiss reduction filter. So it's, yeah, technically four ways to remove broadband noise, okay? So inside this filter, there's lots of parameters. We're actually just going to focus on about 3 of them here, all right? Now, first of all, we have the scale. So this is showing you kind of where that noise lives, and you can see it goes to just around 8,300 hertz right here. It even gives us a little tooltip. This is representing our selection. And then the noise reduction amount, by moving this slider, this is sort of visually showing you how close to the edge of that noise we are to removing everything in its entirety, all right? It's showing you, again, noise floor, high, low, and the threshold. Again, the threshold is the point at which this filter kicks in to begin attenuating that noise. Now, you want to be in a logarithmic scale. If you're in a linear scale, you see that it just really shrinks everything down to the lower end of the frequency spectrum. I just find this a little bit visually more difficult to understand. So I like to use logarithmic. Same for when I'm in the frequency analysis panel here. I'm always viewing in logarithmic as opposed to linear. That's a personal choice. It can be whatever you want. So we have the noise reduction slider here, and we have the reduce by amount. Now this defaults to around 40. I've changed it to 30. And then I'm going to set this now to 0. Not going to worry about smoothing or transition width or precision factor. The only other thing I want to focus on here is spectral decay rate. Now this goes back to something I mentioned earlier, which is carefully attenuating noise so that you don't really perceive it, or subtracting it out. You know, something minus noise equals something with no noise. If you have a spectral decay value of greater than 0, so I think it'll even let you do a fractional percentage here. No, not even. It won't let you do 0.1. Does it let you do 0.5? 1. Okay, so you get, I just had to test. I couldn't remember. Okay. 1 and above is going to use that attenuation method, where really it's just pulling the noise down. It's still kind of there. You just don't really hear it, but it still lingers a little bit. And this can prevent artifacting. If you set this to 0, this now acts as a subtractive filter, where it's literally just taking it out entirely based on the amount of reduction you have in that slider, okay? So it's a little more aggressive, but sometimes for broadband, that is kind of what you want. Now, I'm going to use it at 0 to show you, again, visually the differences of how these filters work. So I'm going to mute myself again. Let's go ahead and I'll adjust that slider and then process it, and you'll really get a good idea of how this works. Here we go. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises, not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me. Okay, now before I process it, you can hear that I'm at about 83%, and it is getting a little bit, we're getting a little bit of the metallic swishy swirlies. So you have a couple options here. One is you can back off on the amount of reduction. Again, just to leave a little bit of it there, probably around 60-something% is still comfortable enough where it's not going to be bothersome. Or you can use a very small amount of spectral decay to leave some of that in there, even as you increase the amount of reduction. So I'm going to set it to 1%, all right? Again, just a little bit, and let's go back and then I'll process it. Not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me. Okay. So now, this really shows you visually how we've sucked. We've really sucked. How we took out all of that noise. Again, we didn't touch this area up here at all. You can see that, all right? It didn't touch the birds. Those are still in there because those are very specific frequencies that were not in our sample, all right? Play those. Okay, there are those birds. All right. But what you also see is all of that bzzz, all of that is gone. And you can see that, again, when I start talking, it just visually, it's like all of it is just attenuated. It's just not there. It's living slightly underneath it. That's what a little bit of that purple coming through is, right? It's letting a little bit of it breathe through, but ultimately it's all gone. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. Not the birds. Okay? Before. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. Not the birds. After. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. Not the birds. Okay. Pretty cool. Now, again, that was at 60-something% versus 80-something% by using a 1% spectral decay. So I just want to point out again that if you're going to use the capture the profile approach, and we'll do this again in about maybe 20 minutes or so, using just a little bit of spectral decay, I typically never go above about 10%, and that's really a maximum. I seldom ever go there. It means that you can use less reduction and end up with something that sounds a little bit less artifacted. Now, if I were to put music underneath this, like if this were a news story or something, the little bit of swirly, swishy, metallic-ness that's in there, you wouldn't perceive it at all. You really wouldn't. And then if it's going out to broadcast or to YouTube or somewhere else, you got a little sound design in there, you'll never notice it, okay? So really, it's always a slight trade-off here. How much are you willing to sacrifice to make something super clean and noise-free, or leave a little bit of that ambience behind, and take it a step further, all right? Okay. All right, so that's broadband noise removal. We're going to come back to this in a little bit, but I want to now talk about visually identifying sounds and then painting them out or healing them out with the use of the healing brush and the paint brush, all right? I got to decide here if I want to use this denoised version for the birds. Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to... Let me see. Let me see. Yeah, let's use the denoised version. Okay. All right. So now that we've taken most of that noise out, there's a couple other things that are pretty consistent, okay? So this is going to showcase two different methods here. The first is auto healing. The second is sound removal, all right? Now, I'm going to cut between two different examples here. If you look here, there's this slight little, I don't even know if that's going to come through on the stream. You're probably not even going to hear that. But there's a little tick right here, a little, for all of you ASMR fans out there, it's like a little glottal sound from your mouth. Yeah, I mean, if you're in headphones, maybe you're hearing it, probably not. Okay. If you wanted to get rid of something like this, all right, this little sonic anomaly that's in there. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to move this, not adjust it. Get out of here. Like that. Once again, we can zoom in, and I can use the marquee selection like this. All right. And I can do a couple of things. Now, this is pretty high up there. This is centered around 14 kilohertz, going up to around 18K. And it's very short, and it's not super loud, but it is a high-pitched little, all right? And it could just be like licking your lips kind of a sound, but maybe it's present and you don't want it in there. Well, I can do one of three things. I can hit the delete key. And if I delete it, you'll see what it does. It just leaves a nice little hole right there, but it takes it out, okay? I can also take my spot healing brush up at the top here, and I can just paint over this. And when I do that, what you'll notice that it still makes a slight indentation, a slight hole, but it leaves a bit of the program content underneath it, just removing the offending frequencies. So you wouldn't hear this at all. This is just like spot healing a blemish. If you're watching Terry White do a retouch, right, and he's removing a blemish on a face, same concept, right? less aggressive. The other thing you can do, if I take our lasso and I select this here, I can make a selection. I can go to our favorites menu, and I can also choose auto heal. And this is effectively doing the same thing as the spot healing brush, okay? So with that in mind, I'm gonna bring this back for a second with all the noise. We've got these birds here, okay? Now, we've got quite a few of them, so I'm probably not gonna wanna spot heal all of these, but let me just show you again visually what spot heal does. You can start to understand when you see things, how this might save something you've worked on. We've done stuff where we had frogs croaking and birds chirping, and it was really irritating. And sometimes it's like, how do I just get rid of that stuff? The broadband noise is not the issue. It's this like tweeting and things that are driving me nuts. You can use this for that. So I'm going to take the paintbrush here. Well, let's start with spot healing first, all right? Start with the spot healing brush. I'm going to make this around 30 pixels. All right, and I'm going to paint over what I think is the bird right here. And let go. Whoops. I need to do it twice. And look at that. And if I play this, probably going to have to amplify, turn your speakers up to hear that now. Let's do the before, okay? Let's redo the heal. It's just totally gone. And visually, you can see it didn't make a huge hole. Now, again, if I were to come in here with something like the lasso, I could do the same thing. And I could just hit delete. Now, that's not that big of a deal because it's a fairly small frequency range. Whoops. But you could almost hear it go, like you hear all that frequency dip out for a second, versus when we did it with the spot healing brush, it was seamless, right? Just like removing a blemish. So if right now your mind is going, what the, yeah, exactly. It's just like Photoshop, just painting on audio here, all right? So that's spot healing. Now that's great, but if you have multiple instances of this, and we have about 3 or 4 of these, and then you've got different bird sounds, I may or may not want to paint all of these individually. So we have another way. So I'm going to take my paintbrush now. I'm going to paint over that bird again. All right. You'll notice that for your brush settings, you also have size and opacity. Opacity is going to act, think of it this way. When it fixes, heals, attenuates. Again, the opacity is how much do you want? Do you want to completely remove everything or kind of leave a little bit of it lingering? So as you adjust the opacity, I don't know if it'll do it. Yeah, you have to do it as you're painting it on here. 50 being basically 100% opaque. That's gonna heal out all of that. So let's go ahead and play this. Okay. Just the birds. All right. So this is kind of a cool, unique thing that Audition lets you do. Now, let's say that we wanted to just extract that bird sound by itself. I can right-click on this selection and choose Copy to New. All right, now this is a very cool technique for like sound design. Put this into a new file. Here's what that looks like. Let's make this louder. Now again, this still has all the noise and everything on it, so don't worry about that for right now. But here is that bird sound isolated. Okay? That's what that bird sounds like in that specific frequency range, all right? Let's go back here. Okay. Instead of extracting it, I'm going to come up to my effects menu now, and I'm going to choose Learn Sound Model. And what this is going to do is just like with the capture noise print, it's going to capture the sound of that bird and store it so that we can go into the sound remover process And now wherever it finds that bird sound, it's going to take it out, and specifically just those frequencies, all right? So when you open this up, you're going to have kind of some default settings. Let's go ahead and set this to high content complexity, all right? And we can also turn on this enhance for speech, all right? Now I just want to click away, okay? And let's wind back, and specifically let's look at this section right about here.
Hi. Hi.
All right, so here's without.
Hi.
And put it back in. Try it again.
Hi.
All right, didn't quite get exactly that one there, but most of it. And again, we can play around a little bit with some of these settings here. This is still using the preset, but this is a good way to kind of get rid of those. Let's go ahead and apply this, right? If you have multiple instances, all right, and you can see that it's still left a little bit of it in there. So this is another example where we could go in if it was just driving us crazy and just spot heal some of those sections, like right there. Go ahead and play this back again.
Hi, this is Jason. Is it there? Hi, this is
Gone, okay? So again, done with sound remover. Again, as we look at specific consistent bird sounds, let's take a look over here.
not the birds, but
I think we can make a selection off of these. Now this one's a little harder, but I'm looking for kind of this consistent patterns, right? That's the amazing thing about animals. Their sounds that they generate, very consistent, right? The human voice, different people, different voices, different sizes, shapes, everything, very different. When you look at birds, that sound that they emit is very identical over time. So again, I could make a selection like this. All right, come up to effects, learn sound model, okay. Go into sound remover, all right, click away, play this.
not the birds, but
So it got most of that first one, missed a little bit of that.
not
got
the birds,
and got that one. So again, a couple little manual tweaks here. Might maybe do a couple more sound refinement passes. Okay, maybe turn off enhance for speech. Let's see if that works better. No, actually I like it better with it on. Yeah, all right. And content complexity, maybe we'll drop it down a little bit. All right, and see what it does there. And you could see that it really just eliminated.
not the birds, but
Got a little bit of something right in there. Okay, but most of it is gone really quickly. Okay, so it's not going to work for everything, but it's just this idea that you can visually identify something, and then if it's consistent and repeatable, this is a great way to get rid of that. Okay. John Lucas, is there a clone stamp too? So no, there's no clone stamp specifically, but again, if you were to make a selection like we did, you can copy and paste those selections repeatedly. So like if I were to do something like this, all right, let's copy that. And let's say that I wanted to add another bird right here. I can just paste it in, and there it is. I can add, you know, and by the way, I can add them over top of my speech, right?
This is Jason Levine, and in this
actually works a little better if you use our mix paste function there, because then you can control the how much overlap is happening. So it's a copy paste in lieu of a clone stamp, but concept is the same. You know, if we want to stick one over here, paste one over there, stick one over here, stick one over there, stick one over there. All right, here's another good example of something that we could probably, it's fairly consistent. And by the way, denoising this first and then trying to remove those birds would be more effective because it's also dealing with all of that background, which you can see occupies that 2.5 to 3 kilohertz range. So I'm making it more difficult, right? So in the case of this, if I were trying to remove birds and the background filter noise, remove the filter noise first, then do the individual painting or sound removal of those sounds, it'll be way more effective, right? Because it's not having to deal with all of that external stuff along the sides there, okay? Cool. All right, let's see what we got here. Cool. Thanks, Wynand. All right, Bernadette, thank you. Quinn, how's it going? Fuzzer. All right, hey, what's up? Hugh O'Connor, PM. All right. It looks like Photoshop. Exactly. And that's what I like to say. It's just like working in Photoshop, okay? Yeah, and H4Ns, I mean, these recorders work great. Okay, so a couple things here, too, as we've got about 9 more minutes here. So talking a bit more, going back to a little bit about broadband noise. So this is something I've shown before, but this, again, kind of illustrates the differences in how different filters work and, you know, some of the potential limitations, but again, ways that you can combat some of those if it's what you're stuck with. So this was an actual recording that I did of years ago from one of these looping sessions that I did, where I was just recording a whole series of like cool groovy bass lines, and doing like little variations every 4 bars. And I don't remember if this was, oh God, this was done in a really old, in fact, wait a second. You know what? I have the studio where this was done. Bear with me, I'm going to show you. Because I found, hold on, I got to find the picture first. I found the photo. This is cool. It's real grungy. So this was my, studio in a temporary location 19 years ago. So 19 years ago. And this is actually where I believe that bass line was cut. It's funny to look at the old gear. So first of all, that's like a Mac tower, old school Mac tower down here in the corner. Nice CRT monitor there using Cool Edit Pro, as you can see. All of this was powered by a ProMix 01. This was actually a ProMix 01 that was used on Steely Dan's Alive in America 1994 tour. All this old analog and digital stuff was still very much in use. And this place was just a wiry mess. Look at it. Here's my Juno 106. That's a Casio CZ1. There's my Moog Rogue over there. Look at all the CD spindles. I love seeing all that. But this place was, that's an Echoplex right here, by the way. But this place was just a noise-filled catastrophe. I mean, there's just wires crossing everywhere. Absolute chaos. And I was in another room doing this. I had someone else engineer me, and for whatever reason, the bass amp was buzzing, right, using this pickup on my Rickenbacker. And I could kind of hear it in the phones, but everything was cranked up so loud I probably wasn't paying attention. And this is what we ended up with here. And I'll mute myself again so you can hear it a bit more cleanly. So could everybody hear that? And here, if I just zoom in on the, again, I've made a marker here for you of just the noise. I'm sure many of us at one point in time have encountered that somewhere in some fashion, okay? So again, for something like this, and this was not faked, this was actually the noise coming off of the amp. You can see that this noise extends all the way from, you know, the fundamental, which is 60 hertz because I'm here in the US. You can really see it right there. That's that fundamental bass frequency right there. And then you're seeing all of the harmonics and octaves above that to make up this very complex broadband noise. Now, For old school audio engineers like me and many others potentially watching, you might think, well, maybe we'll use something like a notch filter and we'll notch out 60 cycle hum and all of that. I've never been a fan of that technique, particularly in this case for bass, because the bass guitar itself, remember, color is amplitude, right? So I don't want to remove 60 hertz or notch out 60 hertz because there's an enormous amount of bass content happening at 60 hertz. So notch filter, which is really just an EQ with very, very narrow bandwidths, is going to be too destructive. Let me show you. So we have something called the DeHummer. This is effectively a very complex notch filter system. And there's even a preset even in here called Remove 60 Hertz and Harmonics. So you might think, oh, perfect, that's exactly what I want, which is what we're using here. So when I apply this, all right, oh, and I did it to a very small, I didn't realize I had made a section there. Let's go back to that. When I apply this, what you now see is it didn't really do very good of a job, for one. Let's do this again. Go back into DeHummer. Let's choose our 60 hertz harmonics. And all it really did was focus on removing most of that very low end noise, but it only offers you up to 8 harmonics in there. So all this other buzz that's happening up here in this range, if you can't hear it, if you're not wearing it, it's all still there. And the bass sounds a little thinner on top of it all. So I've never been a fan of notch filtering for that reason. So again, this is where we would use a capture noise print to really tackle that. So come back over here. Let's select this section again. All right. Let's go into capture noise print, noise reduction. All right. I'm going to set spectral decay to 0. Why? Because I don't want to keep any of that zzz in there at all. I want to subtract all of it out. All right. Select the entire file. Let's go ahead and play it back. And it looks like I don't even have to use that much. Let's see what it looks like at 49% reduction. Wow. Gone. Before, you can see all those horizontal lines. Nightmare. After, darkness. And now, okay? And if you want to bring back, we're getting a little sloshiness in the string slides. So again, we could go into something like our parametric EQ. And you can see in here, I did a little bit of a bump, a little bit of a boost around 3,000 hertz. So 3K is where you're going to bring out a bit of that string slide. Also increased about 5 dB at almost around 900. That's going to give you a bit more of that woody neck sound, a little more upper mids, well, lower mids, but upper lows, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then I notched out about almost 5 dB at 200 to just kind of take a little bit more of that warm edge off. So if we take a listen without, kick it back in. It's just clean. It's nice and bassy. We didn't lose any bass definition there. And really, in just a couple of seconds, we visually identified where something lived and zonked it out. All right? Last thing I'm going to show you, because we've got 2 more minutes here before we got to sign off, is something that many of you will encounter, especially if you're doing any kind of streaming or podcasting or YouTubing, and that is plosives, popping Ps. That low-end burst of air that really can ruin a take. And sometimes it's not just the burst of air, but it's not from a P. It's just like you get this like this wash of air that kind of ruins your voice. So this is the vocal track from my recent piano and chill session. And again, if we listen right here, you're going to see that I have a couple of sections here where we have that kind of burst of air. Take a quick listen.
I got a heartache coming my way. I got a heartache coming my heart.
Right here.
Coming my way.
It's not even a P, but that coming, that it's all this air that got sucked up in there, all right? Now, we can use an effect that I've talked about a lot under the FFT filter, which is called Remove the Rumble. And this is a great way to just kind of get rid of the initial fundamental of that, of a popping P, but it doesn't always do it. So what you can do is, once again, you can come in here with your Spectral tools, in this case our lasso. I'm going to make a selection like this and just delete it out. Come over here and delete that out like that. Hit play. Oops, sorry.
I got a heartache coming my way.
And it zaps it right out. All right, let's see here.
Baby butt.
All right, baby butt. Same thing. I can take this and delete. I can take that. Zap. Zap.
Baby butt.
All right, missed a little bit of it right there. All right, select, zap, T.
Baby butt, look at the Tia.
All right, simple, easy, just like that. And unfortunately, friends, that is all the time I have. So thank you so much for watching. Coming up, we've got Julia Masalska, who's going to do the Adobe Illustrator Creative Challenge. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.